Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel, or welcome to the channel if you're new. And today I'm going to be starting, shockingly, another computer restoration. Hopefully a computer restoration, because I have no idea if this thing's even going to work, because this is far outside of my realm of any sort of knowledge, no matter how lacking my knowledge may be on vintage computers. And that is a fairly rare machine. I think this is definitely going to be even more rare than that K-Pro. And that is, yes, you're seeing this right. This is a Bell & Howell microcomputer, which is nothing more than an Apple II Plus made by Apple for Bell & Howell. And I got extremely lucky finding this. But as you can see, this thing is extremely dirty. But not too bad condition-wise. All the keys are here. It's got this piece of paper here, which it either says bad cord or bad card, and no way to hook up monitor. Piece is missing. So I'm not 100% sure what that means, but I think it has something to do with the fact that this has the even harder to find, focus, Bell & Howell AV backpack. And the video out is two B and C connectors, so just a little backstory with this. So in the Pentium 2 build video I did a while back, because I don't know how long it's been since, how much time's passed, really. I have a buddy who works at the scrapyard, and he normally tells me when they get in pallets or a shipment or whatever of old junk computers that's being scrapped. And he asked me if, there's anything he needs to keep an eye out for. And I said any beige or tan computers, because normally those are from the 90s, 80s, and 70s. Mainly the 80s and 90s. Most of the ones I've gotten from there that he's told me about were 90s era. So I got like a bunch of TNT 2 M64 cards and Sound Blaster Lives and a bunch of just random mid-90s parts. No Voodoos, unfortunately. But he sent me a picture of just the label here that says Bell & Howell. No other picture. And he asked, did I want it? So I immediately called him and I told him I know exactly what that is from that label. And that, yes, I want this thing. So a little bit of a weird oddity with this. When I pan the camera over, there's some real damage here. There's the engraving here and here. They just engraved the serial number here. Serial number is engraved on the bottom. And the elementary middle school that this thing was used at some point in the late 70s and early 80s. But as for that, I know nothing about this machine. I don't know if it even works, especially with this piece of paper that says bad cord or card and has no way to hook up the monitor. So I'm going to have to find a way to get this backpack unit off to see if I can get a video output to see if it even works. But we're going to try and power it on after I take this cover off. There's a thumb screw back here. And there's a reason why there's a thumb screw back here. It serves two purposes. And I'll explain both purposes in a second. Ooh, we're bare bones. What do we got? We have one expansion card, and that's it. No floppy controllers, no 80 column cards, no nothing. But everything's fully populated. And there's even an extra chip taped here. I wonder if that's for the this RAM expander card. See what this is. Take it out carefully. 16K card. So it's not a language card like most of these have. But that looks like a language card. That doesn't look like any other RAM card that I've seen when I looked this machine up. Because I did look up these machines a little bit after I got this. Because I wanted to see how big of a pain in the butt it was going to be to restore this. And actually, really the only problem I have to worry about is a line filter cap exploding in this power supply, or one of these chips being dead. Which, if that's the case, the only problem that's going to cause is me trying to track down one of these chips. But everything is socketed from what I can tell. And everything's labeled from what it's supposed to be. 47 LS 161, 138s, 9334s, standard 6502. So everything here should be pretty easy to find on eBay, or at least compatible to find on eBay. The keyboard is all intact, and it looks like they're the concave style. Because there's several, Apple IIs had so many different keyboards. They all look the same, but they all had different PCBs and apparently encoder boards. And there's a wire here soldered to one of the pins that's going to a pin on the game port. I wonder what that's for. I'll have to see if that's an aftermarket thing or what. But apparently this is one of the better mechanical, I think Alpine or Cherry switch. I'll have to look up which one it is later. Keyboards, which is the more desirable one because the later ones are kind of like a membrane style that they did for cost reduction. But we'll see what that is later. So anyway, I have to put the cover back on for a particular reason. And it's because... Oh, and before I start, I'll have to do some restoration work on this because it's missing the... I'm not really it's like a type of super Velcro, I guess, to help hold the lid down. But it's missing some of the Velcro pads. I'm going to have to see if I can find some. But the reason why the lid has to go back on and the thumb screw screwed back in is because of the UL listing, which is why this machine even exists. So the reason why Bell & Howell even has a branded, basically color variant Apple II Plus is because certain schools could only buy appliances and equipment for learning if it met UL listings. And to paraphrase and layman terms sum this up, if you can open electronic device while it's under power and easily access the internal circuitry under power, it doesn't meet listings, because it means that somebody could just take this cover off, put their hand on the motherboard while it's under power, and either damage the circuit board or cause harm or death to whoever just touched the motherboard. So to kind of circumvent that, they put a thumb screw on the back of these that would screw the top cover down, so you would have to pull this away from the wall or pull this away from whatever on your workbench while you're at school, use a tool like a screwdriver or an Allen key in this case, undo the screw, and then pop this off to do it, and that was a big hassle, which now let it meet UL listing. And I'll do a lot more in-depth talking about that when I start doing more in-depth testing and diagnosing and restoring this machine. But this backpack unit here does something else. This thumb screw on the back right here, when it screws out to undo the top, you can hear it. There's a momentary switch in there that when you unscrew it, it undoes the the momentary switch, and it cuts power off from the power in. So as soon as you undo that to open this up while it's under power, it'll kill power and shut it off. Which again means this meets UL listings for certain schools. The ironic part about this is, according to this label here and the engraving here, this engraving from this school here is from a middle school that is still in operation today. That is only like an hour and 15-minute drive away from me. But this label here, which I think means that this was sold to this school here, or this company anyway that this label's on, is only like a half hour, maybe tops, drive from my house. So this actually, during its life, was stupidly local, and it came into a scrapyard. So hopefully it works. So ideally, when I flip this power switch, this light should turn on, and I should hear a beep. Should. Or I'm going to hear a loud explosion from the power supply blowing up. Fingers crossed. Nothing. Well, that's not good. All right, so let's try this again. I'm going to screw this in just enough to trigger the switch. Okay, there's something. Let's see if I can turn it. When I flick the power switch, that LED comes on. So there is power getting to this card at least, but not the speaker. Because the speaker's right there and it should be working. I'm going to just undo this and take this card out, because I don't need that right this second to test this. That is strange. I'm going to have to research this. Yeah, I'm going to have to research this for like a split second. Okay, so I found a bit of the problem. There's actually a broken off piece of metal inside the headphone jack. So, now that that's taken care of, put this RAM card back in. And see what it does. Well, that's strange. Okay, so now there's no speaker, but that LED there does turn on, which tells me that the board is at least getting some sort of power. Maybe not the right power, but it's getting power. So I'm going to start the restoration of this by well, getting the main casing cleaned up. But to do that, I need to take that backpack unit off because that's going to stop me from checking the video output on the composite side. I just really hope it's as easy to take off as I think it is. Oh, so what happens if I was to undo this and plug you in right there? Okay, so the speaker is still not working, but now the power light's working. Okay, so that's interesting, and all I did was this harness here goes to this backpack unit here. And I just plugged the speaker wire directly back into the speaker port on the motherboard. So somehow that brought the power LED back working. So progress by unplugging something. One backpack unit. So yeah, all this thing is just basically a pass-through that lets the video, cassette, and audio be more easily accessibly plugged in, and be able to plug your monitor, disk drives, printer into this, all into one unit. But this also prevents me from being able to plug this into a screen and see if it has an output, because now I can, now that I've got that off, and I can get to the video out. The only thing I'm not too happy about is, set that over there, so unfortunately it has these now holes on the back, so I'm gonna have to do something about that, but everything seems to be okay. So I'm gonna go get a power cord and a monitor, plug this in, and just see if it works. Okay, so I've got the cover back on, which looks way better compared to the rest of the machine. And unfortunately, the only TV I have that's small enough that has a composite in is this little Philips flat TV. I do have a TV that does have a composite input, but unfortunately it is way too big to be doing this with this, so let's see, nothing blows up. Hey! Okay, so there's garbage on the screen. That is fine. Because, well, reset doesn't work. But that means that stuff is working. Not the way it should be working, but it is working. It's displaying a video out. And it's a stable video out. Because yeah, I'm wiggling the composite out and nothing's happening. So, this is actually good. Because this means I can diagnose this motherboard. Maybe there's a logic chip bad, a video chip bad, a ROM chip bad. I don't know. But that means I can now tear this machine apart, start cleaning it, and start getting the motherboard looked at. So, let's get that done. Really wish I was doing this down on my workbench, but unfortunately, I don't have that option right now because I'm doing some work down there to it, so it's kind of got a bunch of crap all over the bench. What's fascinating is how clean this card is. So I kind of wonder if this was installed later, but I'm still going to keep this and use it in the machine once I get this thing clean. So, and I found out what this orange wire is. This actually has the shift key mod that allows certain, well, all typing programs that were available for this machine to be able to detect that you push the shift key that you want the lowercase letter set, because the Apple IIs and the 2 Pluses did not have a lowercase set. It was all uppercase. So the shift key mod actually, it connected a pin of the keyboard to the game port so that when you push shift, the typing program would detect that it kind of acts as like a caps lock key of sorts, so it shifts between the lower and uppercase. So it's a good thing it has that. And we're also going to pull this chip off, and it is a MOSTEC 8042. With the Apple logo on it. So this is actually probably one of the original RAM chips. And I bet it does go right here where that card's connector was going. So I might actually pop this back in and retest the video and just see what happens. So now technically, if that card actually is a 16K card, and only a 16K card, from what I can tell, that's not the language card, this thing is now knocked back down to 48K, which is fine because that means there's nothing extra on the board that's plugged in. So this thing should at least display some type of video. Maybe it had a corrupted RAM chip, I don't know. Because it did say bad cord or bad card, and I'm not sure if it's cord or card. So, try this again. Hey, hey! Okay, so it's not... Certain keys aren't working. But it's working. Okay, so something on that card is either bad or not working. So now I do want to try this again. Let's remove this RAM chip. And that pulled out almost too easy. I don't know if I like that. Let's pop this card back in and just see if it does the exact same thing. But now it's working. What did I do? Okay, so now I'm at a complete loss for words because now it is working. It's functioning. The only thing that's not functioning is the keyboard. The motherboard's working fine. Okay, I have no idea what I just did. Like, I'm being 100%, I'm being honest. I don't know what I just did. All I did was plug the RAM card back in. Okay, so, well, now I'm really confused. Because now the beeper speaker's working, the power LED's working, and half the keyboard's working. So, you know what? I'm not going to question it fully right now. I'm going to tear the casing off, tear everything out, clean the bottom chassis, clean the top chassis, and get this thing looking good, and hopefully it still works when I get done. So we have everything that's actually labeled of what each chip is and what it's supposed to be. So you can get replacement parts really, really easily. Everything's labeled how they should be. Each resistor, capacitor, what each pot does, what each ROM is. This entire thing right here is the entire RAM bank. All the keyboard stuff. I wonder what ROM special is. It's labeled 1979. Yeah, everything's labeled nicely as it should, which is amazing. That means finding parts for this is going to be easy. But since it displayed a video output and a clean output too, especially after I just basically reinstalled that, I'm assuming everything on this board works. So honestly, I'm not going to do anything major. I'm just going to clean this board off with an anti-static brush and get all the dust off. Clean out all the dust bunnies and stuff out of here. And then basically just clean this thing up, reassemble it, and get it put back together. Oh, I do need to figure out why the keyboard's not working, but this ain't going to be as big of a headache as I thought it was going to be. Okay, I'm going to asterisk that real quick. It's not going to be as big of a pain in the butt as just getting it back together like it was and working like it was. But since all this thing has is the 16K RAM expander card, which makes this thing a 64K machine, which is the maximum that the 6502 processor can address, there's no floppy controller card, there's no 80 column card, there's no language card. I don't think this is a language card. If any Apple experts out there can help out with this. It looks like a language card. The only difference is these two chips right here on a language card is one chip. So I'm assuming this is not one. But, so I'm going to have to find a floppy controller card and maybe get a floppy emulator. But I might have a way to get software on here anyway. Because if this has a working cassette port, I should be able to plug this into either my laptop or my smartphone and play a WAV file of a program, like a game, to get onto this. Maybe. I don't know. I'm going to do some more research on that. But yeah, if everything works on this machine, then that'd be great. What I don't understand, though, is why when I put the other RAM chip back in and got this thing back to the 48K, it gave me a graphical error. But as soon as I put the 16K card back in, it was crisp and clear. I don't know. Anyway, let's keep going with this. And there's the encoder board with the shift key mod soldered to pin, I believe that's pin 25. So what's really interesting is that this entire encoder board here is basically to convert the signals that these 2-pin, I believe these are Alps or switches, I believe. I'm going to do a lot of research. I'm talking out of my butt with these. But I believe these are Alps or Cherry. I don't really know for certain. But it takes the signals that these use and convert it to something that the Apple keyboard can use. And what's horrible about this is that the encoder card here is almost matched to the keyboard design. So the later keyboards that use the membrane style can't use this exact one. It has to use the one for the membrane one. And the membrane one, controller card, or encoder card, can't go with the mechanical switch one. But what's interesting is that looks like there's a switch. Like there's a spot for another switch here. and some sort of connector here. So I wonder if this encoder board was used for other things besides the Apple II. And this switch here, control and reset, what that does is, if it's set to reset, if you hit the reset button, it'll reset the machine, while it's in use. Which means that if you're typing a basic program out or typing anything, and you accidentally hit reset, you lose all your work. But if it's set to control, it has to be control reset at the same time, which is really good because that would reduce the risk of screwing up and losing your work, which is great. So I'm going to clean this case off. I'm going to pop these keys off later to clean them, not right now. And just to help, and so you don't screw it up and do it on accident, under the reset switch, there's actually, if you can see it, a helper spring, which means this key is actually pretty stiff to push down. You have to put some effort into it. The other ones are just, but the reset has got some force to it. All right, get to cleaning the case. And there we go. Looks a lot better. I'm going to do some more fine-tuned cleaning to it. But now you can really see the engraving here, the serial number, and where this thing came from. So, yeah, I find this thing fascinating that this was actually just not far from where I live. Which is just ironic as all heck because I've been trying to find an Apple II for a long time. Specifically, I was trying to find an Apple II GS. When I was a lot younger, my dad had bought an Apple II GS from his local high school when they were updating computers in the late 80s, early 90s. And I remember playing, I was really young, so it's all spotty memory, by the way. But like Oregon Trail, and I think there was a couple other games I remember playing on it. And I have just a few memories of it, but I've been kind of trying to track one down for the nostalgia of the Apple IIs. And I actually was not trying to find an Apple II or Apple II Plus or the E or C, anything like that, because they're kind of, like I said, outside of my realm of any form of knowledge. Because unlike the computers I've been messing with on my channel previously, like the K Pro and the IBM and all their compatibles and clones and all the 90s computers that I'm going to be doing, they're all, at least modern computers at least, start there. The Apple II, though, is kind of that weird platform that it kind of died. In that, it's kind of spotty to find. It's not spotty to find information on. You can find information on these all day long, but there's less and less people making third-party hardware for them. And I know that there's going to be somebody who's going to comment that there's, there's floppy emulators and that kind of stuff, but there's fewer of them being made now. There was one or two that I know of that I've looked into that a lot of people recommended, but you can only find them on eBay, and if they show up on eBay. Like the CF to IDE adapters or the XT to IDE adapters, those are, common because they was working just a huge swath of hardware. The Apple IIs, though, there's a lot of hardware out there for them, but you gotta jump on them when you find them. And parts for Apple IIs are almost as expensive as Apple IIs. Like finding a keyboard, like if that keyboard is completely junk, there's a very good chance that I would have to buy an entirely new Apple or a completely different Apple II just for the keyboard mechanism. And that's just, absurd that you'd have to do that. But it also kind of makes sense because Apple, especially these early Apples, are really sought after. And the Bell and Howells, like this one, aren't, they're a little bit harder to find, not because people are seeking for them and looking for them and hunting them down, but because there's not a lot of these made. These were just for the education market. The average person couldn't buy one of these Bell and Howell ones. So there's not a lot out there because schools would retire them, and a lot of times schools would just, recycle them and destroy them. So to find one in 2020, well, 2021 now, I guess, is kind of impressive to do. See if I can get this 8 gone a little better and get that adhesive residue gone. I'm going to clean the motherboard and get it dusted off, get it cleaned. I might reseat all the ICs. I'm not 100% sure if I want to do that because it is working at this current time. And I'm going to be cleaning the keyboard mechanism and getting that done. So and that is a huge improvement over what it was when I first started. So I took the backpacking it off, and I'll get to that here in a second. But it actually wasn't too bad. So I actually took a anti-static brush and cleaned up all the dust out from in here with some compressed air. I didn't end up taking the motherboard out and unsocketing all these chips. Took all the chips off of the RAM expander card here. Cleaned them all off with some isopropyl alcohol. And got them all back on the board and put back together. So we're going to see if this thing fully works by trying out a game, which I actually did a lot of research on this machine here and found a way to get a game on here. Even though I don't have a disk drive or a disk controller, I couldn't find any real schematics on this. This is a kind of a proprietary-ish Bell and Howell joystick, which is extremely rare, even more rare than this machine, and even more rare than the backpack unit that was on here, which I am probably never going to find. So I'm going to, in a separate video way later, I'm going to take a multimeter and pin out these DIN connectors here, see what will go to what, and see if I can find an analog joystick, or even make an analog joystick, because apparently there's schematics online to make a quick and easy analog based joystick for these. But some things that I do want to talk about while I was doing some cleaning on this. The RAM chip here that was taped to it is bad. When I take out this RAM card here, none of this RAM works. And when I put that dead RAM chip back in, I get a bunch of garbage and vertical lines on the screen and just a bunch of random crap. But when I put this back in, everything works fine. And even though I don't have any diagnostic testing tools for this, I did manage to find a couple basic prompts I could type in to at least make sure all the RAM's working, and all the RAM does seem to be detecting the full 64K. This is just a generic 16K RAM expander card. It's a clone of, I think, the Microsoft one. It's unbranded, so it's just a 16K RAM. So this is a 64K machine. And something else I found interesting. This chip here, I don't know if you can see it with my crappy camera here, but there's a very faint hairline crack going across the top of this chip here. It does seem to be working when I take a multimeter to it and check all the grounds, and I check all the outputs. It does seem to be working under power, so that's good. The encoder board here, you'll see it's missing the plastic standoffs. If I put this back in its proper spot, it doesn't make good contact and half the keys are dead. Power LED doesn't come on, and that kind of stuff. But when I kind of put it in a certain spot and wiggle it and get it into the spot it's in now, all the keys work. It functions as intended. And this little orange wire here that goes all the way over to the joystick port, this is actually part of a very simple mod that Apple actually encouraged. And what it would do is it would ground pin, I believe 24 or 25 to the shift key. So 100% of all typing programs that this computer would use would give the lowercase letter set. Otherwise it would all be uppercase, because there is no lowercase ROM character set for this. Which I found kind of weird, because other computers at the time had it. But right now everything's good. It does power on. That LED comes on. That LED comes on. The beep chimes. So everything on here works as intended, as far as I know. So we're going to try and play a game real quick and see how it works. Let's get this top cover put back on. Before I do, they've got these Velcro brand adhesives, or not adhesive, but hook and loop. This one was on, and I tried super gluing this one back on, but the super glue didn't stay. It actually popped back off, so I'm going to have to do something about that later. Right now this is just to show that it does still work. And I kind of want to show the monitor I'm going to use for this, because I didn't even know that I had this, to be honest. I would use the Philips flat TV that I was using before, but I'm going to use this. This is a Panasonic AG513 monitor slash recorder, and I don't even remember when I picked this thing up. Like, I really don't. I think I got it from a friend of the family's. But the neat thing about it is, it's not a television. It's actually a computer monitor that has a BNC video input and output with a normal RCA jack audio input and output, but it's for security camera usage. It's even got a built-in VCR or VHS to record camera footage. And I actually do have the owner's manual for this. It actually talks about accepting a secondary video input to record to a VHS, and then this can be videoed out to another recording system to apparently for overlaying video on video, apparently, as a low-cost way to do it, I guess. But it does work with this Apple II. So let's get it hooked up using the composite and see how it works. Let's power this on. Gee, it'd help if I turn on the TV first. Stupid. Okay. And there's the Apple II prompt. Make sure all the keys work. Okay, so all the keys are working. So normally it would, this has an auto start ROM, so if it detects a disk controller, it would automatically try to load from a disk, which I do not have. I am trying to track down a disk controller, but they are kind of pricey on eBay at the moment. So, and that monitor X fits on there really good. I didn't notice that till just now. But, so we're going to type in load. Now this would actually start the loading process from a audio cassette, which I do not have because I don't have any Apple games or software on cassette. But what I do have is an old smartphone. This one's an old one of mine that I don't use anymore, but the Wi-Fi system still works. So I went to a website called it's called ASCIIExpress.net, and it houses a bunch of gee, can't read that, can I? A bunch of cassette files on the website. So I'm going to pick a game. Let's try Apple Invaders, since I think that's a joystick-less game. And you can see it's got a bunch of audio wave files. And it says you should see a parentheses bracket loader or asterisk loader. If it's the asterisk loader, that's the older version. The asterisk version is for the older style Apple IIs that didn't have the auto start ROM, whereas the parentheses loader is the later Apple II Pluses and Apple IIe's, and I think the C also does it. So we're going to connect my phone to this audio cable I've got plugged into the back on the cassette in. We're going to hit enter or return. Then we're going to hit lo-fi, which I don't know the difference, but and then when this starts back up, we'll see how it works. And there we go. Apple Invaders. So, God, that's weird. So J is fire. I'm causing more damage than they are. Okay, so Apple's Invaders works. So if you ever do come across an Apple II, Apple II Plus, whatever, and you don't have a disk drive yet, this website is actually really useful. I'm not endorsed by them or sponsored by them. It's just a really useful thing. I think there's a similar website for the Commodores and the Ataris and such. But, yeah, so it actually does work and play a game, which is surprisingly something I didn't expect, because honestly, this thing was thrown around in the scrapyard, and it's, you know, from 1979, so it's got 41 years old, something like that. And it worked just fine. But as you can still see, it's got the engraving, which is the Apple serial number, not the Bell & Howell serial number, which is weird. And also has the school engraving, which is actually not that far. It's like maybe an hour and a half or so away from me. But yeah, this thing works just fine, kinda. I do want to get a disc controller card and a disc drive, because I've only gotten, of all the games that were on this list, I only showed one, Apple Invaders. But Apple Invaders, Miss Pac-Man, and Galaxian are the only three so far that I have found to get to work on here. I've tried Dig Dug, Pac-Man, Boulder Dash, Choplifter, Lemmings. They don't want to fully load. In fact, it actually just displays a bunch of garbage on screen. And it won't fully load them. So I don't know. I know it has the full 64K on it, but I am going to have to break down and get a disk drive for this eventually. But yeah, this whole restoration was actually supposed to be a lot more challenging, because a lot of these have some chips that can go bad and traces that can go bad. Power supply can have the line filter cap explode. And I was actually kind of, I'm not disappointed that it's fully working, but I was kind of expecting it to have something else wrong. But no, this Bell & Howell unit actually works just fine. It cleaned up really nice and really well. So for right now, this thing is done. This thing will be back in another video once I get a disc controller card and a disc drive. I'm not going to try and track down the actual Bell & Howell one. I'd be fine if I could track down an Apple II one. The tan colored ones. But yeah, for right now, this restoration went way smoother than it should have been. This restoration project is done. It's going to go on my shelf of 8-bit micros. And look forward to seeing this in the future on some other projects and some other testing. So until then, if you like this video, hit the like button. Comment with any questions or any statements you have about this, if you have one or used one, and your opinions and thoughts on it. And hit that subscribe button if you like the content, because there'll be coming a lot more content in the future. So until then, see you in the next video.